not that there was any sarcasm or this or that with Ween. I mean, people always like to think that we were taking the piss out of something or this or that. You know, it's real easy to criticize it, where I think all we were trying to do is write good songs. But these are good songs, and there's no wiggle room for anything. So it's just good music.
What do you think of poetry?
We don't. We're not. We're taking some time apart.
During the La Cucaracha era, fans felt a palpable shift in vibes from Ween. The track list of La Cucaracha seemed to be divided into two clear camps: Jeaner songs and Diener songs, rather than being a collaborative effort, almost like the Beatles' White Album. People also started to sense tension from Ween on the road, with the usually upbeat and energetic band seeming more lackadaisical on stage. But there was no way for fans to know that this would be the beginning of the end for Ween, at least in the way it had existed for nearly 3 decades prior. From 2008 onward, both fans and the band themselves were in for a rough ride, full of pitfalls, windfalls, and hopes dashed against the rocks.
Here's the story of a band you really should try to hear, Ween.
Oh, we're Ween.
What's a Ween?
We're a band, you know.
Out of nowhere, out of a total musical vacuum, out of total darkness, comes one ray of light. And it's fucking Ween.
From 2007 to 2010, things seemed to be business as usual for Ween, with the band playing around 50 gigs a year, with many of those shows being sold out. On November 25th of 2008, Ween would release At the Cat's Cradle 1992, a live CD and DVD bundle with material dating back to the Pure Guava tour, which was described by Diener as being so brown, it's almost black. During this time, Diener began devoting more time to fishing, getting a license to operate a fishing vessel and taking anglers out on trips through Mickey's Guide Service. He also began a web show, Brownie Troop Fishing Show, which would continue until 2011.
Towards the stern of the boat. Walk towards the stern of the boat. This way, get I don't know where the this way. I'm sorry. Walk towards the boat.
Diener would even frequently fish with Primus frontman Les Claypool and pitched a reality show featuring the two, which would be produced by South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Jeaner, however, continued to create music. He and Dave formed the Gene Ween Band to perform more intimate shows featuring stripped-down versions of Ween songs, outtakes never before heard live, and new original material, which many theorized at the time would be on Ween's next album. In February of 2010, Ween released a single in support of charity organization Target Cancer, DC Won't Do You No Good, a pop-rock banger with one of Diener's best guitar tones ever. In an interview with the National Post for an article titled Ween, a Band That Doesn't Suck, Diener revealed that the band had scheduled studio time in the winter of 2010 to begin work on their next studio album. Things seemed to be on the up and up for Ween. In January of 2011, Ween traveled to Vancouver to begin a tour that would see them work their way down the West Coast into the US. However, their first show at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre on the 24th would turn out to be an ill omen. Throughout the band's history, Gene and Dean had never shied away from admitting their issues with substance use. Dean's tour diaries from the White Pepper era paint a harrowing picture of getting blackout wasted every night, sleeping until the afternoon, playing a 3-hour show under the heat of stage lights, then rinse and repeating throughout the tour. I'm sure you can see how this created an unhealthy environment for the band. I want to be clear that this next section is not meant to make fun of or belittle anyone in any way. Substance issues are a serious problem that anyone can deal with, and Gene has since accomplished the Herculean task of getting completely clean and seems to be happy and healthy in 2025, which deserves serious accolades. but the purpose of this show is to chronicle the history of the greatest band in the world, and for better or worse, this is a part of Ween history. On that fateful show in Vancouver, things started out sort of innocuously. The band launched into La Cucaracha opener Fiesta to thunderous applause from the audience, but keen-eared attendees began to notice that Gene's tambourine playing was off rhythm, with one audience member commenting, "Okay kids, that's the worst tambourine playing you're ever going to hear," probably thinking it was just Gene being silly. But as the show went on, it became clear that something was wrong. Gene's vocals seemed off-key and strained as the band really tried to up the energy to compensate. 3/4 of the way through the set, during a cover of the Carpenters' Superstar, Gene laid down on the stage and stayed there for the remainder of the song. 2 songs later, after the band's cover of Ace of Spades, Dean and Dave walked off the stage, leaving Gene in the spotlight as Glenn and Claude switched instruments, just trying to have fun and make the most of the night. As Gene performed Birthday Boy, one of Ween's first masterpieces of sincere songwriting, the crowd really seemed to grasp that something was wrong. It was then that Claude and Glenn exited the stage, leaving Gene to perform I Don't Want It, Sarah, Kansas City Star, and Don't Sweat It by himself under the stage lights and the scrutiny of the crowd. In an interview with Casey Moffett from Chicagoist in 2015, Gene made a statement about the incident, saying, "You don't blow it on stage, lying on your back screaming nonsense in front of 5,000 people and not try to change something. Chances are when you're doing something like that, you've got to do something differently." Getting ahead of myself slightly, Gene would later write a song about that night on the Freeman album with a song called Covert Discretion, which was written a week after the Vancouver incident while still on tour. The song, as painful as a fresh wound, features vulnerable lyrics reading, "Another chance now, I'm on the stage again, but this time I don't fly. You all just left me, just walked away, alone up there to die. It was the next day, got a couple calls making sure I'm alive." Despite the trauma of the Vancouver show, amazingly, Ween kept their commitment to their next gig, playing Seattle the very next night with an impressive 31-song set. Then Portland the next night, Oakland on the 28th, and LA on the 29th. Ween's tenacity in this period was really amazing. On August 11th, 2011, Dean posted a 101-minute-long compilation to his Facebook page called The Caesar Demos, with Caesar being the working title for Quebec. The 29-track compilation consists of early demos of Quebec tracks, as well as 15 outtakes and then unreleased tracks. With the post, Dean commented, "When we were doing this, we still had Claude Coleman on drums. He eventually got into a major car wreck and wasn't around when it finally came time to make the real record. Almost all of this was recorded at our beach house in Holgate, New Jersey, on a 16-track tape. This isn't even all of the tunes that we ended up choosing from, just the ones I happened to burn to CD before we drove home from the beach every week. Hope you dig it for what it is." The release of Caesar was very exciting for fans as it offered a wealth of new Ween songs, as well as valuable insight into the behind-the-scenes of Quebec. However, unlike Craters of the Sack, the release of Caesar seems to have been a surprise to Gene. It was initially reported that Gene was furious with Dean, but I think that's blown out of proportion. The interview that inspired this rumor from River City's Reader, done a week after the release of Caesar, simply reads, "He never told me about it. He's always done that periodically. He released a couple songs that he should have asked me, but he didn't. I'm glad the fans are happy." Jeff Ignatius goes on to say, "When I asked Freeman which songs he would have preferred to be consulted on, he said, 'I'll address that with him.'" For the remainder of 2011, Ween continued to perform sporadic shows, leading up to 2 shows on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in Denver, with the last song the band performed being the Blarney Stone. Throughout the first few months of 2012, there was near radio silence from the band. Then, on May 29th of 2012, a bomb dropped. In a surprise interview with Rolling Stone, Gene, Aaron Freeman, announced that he was, quote, retiring Gene Ween. He was further pressed by interviewer Darren Levin. So does that mean the end for Ween, the band that Freeman formed with high school friend Mickey Melchiondo, aka Dean Ween, in New Hope, Pennsylvania in the mid-80s? Pretty much, yeah. It's been a long time, 25 years. It was a good run. Ween manager Greg Frey posted a statement on Facebook stating that Aaron had chosen to end his musical relationship with Ween so he could, quote, more fully explore and pursue his solo career. Dean would respond on Facebook, writing, "This is news to me. All I can say, for now, I guess. Later, in an interview with MTV, Dean would say, "I can only speak for myself, but as far as I'm concerned, as long as Aaron and I are both alive on this planet, Ween is still together. We've never broken up. The idea of quitting is just laughable. This isn't something you can quit. This is a life sentence." A lot of Ween fans at the time felt sort of blindsided by the announcement, and understandably so. But there was a lyric from Covert Discretion that I held back earlier, which I think will shed some light on the situation. "Man, you gotta end this. Just walk away, your money or your life. So save your judgments for someone else. Be grateful, I save me from myself." And that's really what's important here. Aaron quitting Ween wasn't just about focusing on a solo career. The life of hard partying and loneliness on the road was killing him, and he made the right choice for himself to get out of that situation and change his life for the better. In May of 2012, Gene released a project that he had been working on since March of the previous year, an album of Rod McEwen covers entitled Marvelous Clouds. The album was spearheaded by Ben Vaughn, the producer of 12 Golden Country Greats, and features 13 Good Vibes McEwen covers performed by session players and Gene Ween.
I think I've been naturally gravitating towards getting into more of a soft rock or an easy thing. Starting with, on the last Ween record, I wrote Your Party, and that was sort of me going off into this weird direction, and I'd like to pursue that. So the Rod McEwen stuff is right up my alley. It's exactly the kind of music that I like to make.
The album is a fun listen, but was disappointing to fans who were looking for original material from Aaron post-Ween. However, at the gigs promoting the album, Gene and Dave would play Ween songs alongside the tracks from Marvelous Clouds. Meanwhile, Dean stayed busy by reuniting his band with Guy Heller, Moistboyz, and by forming the Dean Ween Group with Claude, Glenn, and Dave from Ween. Moistboyz would record and release their 5th album in 2013, while Dean Ween Group played gigs throughout the hiatus. The Gene Ween Band would also occasionally play gigs during this period, which I'm sure left Dave feeling like a kid caught in the middle of a divorce. In May of 2014, Gene would release Freeman, his first solo record of original material since Synthetic Socks in 1987. Mixed by White Pepper producer Chris Shaw, Freeman very much feels like a return to early 2000s era Ween, with slick production, poppy hooks, and sincerity abound, and features some of Gene's greatest compositions of all time. Throughout history, we see time and time again that adversity breeds some of the best and most interesting art, and Freeman is certainly in that camp. Akin to the circumstances surrounding Quebec, Freeman was written during a period of great upheaval for Aaron, and the music obviously helped him reach some sort of catharsis. I'll be diving into the Freeman album track by track in a future extras video, but for now I'll just say that it features a wide swath of lyrical subjects, from personal turmoil to historical epics to silly ballads. And while its sonic profile is less varied than most Ween albums, mostly sticking to pop rock and folk, the songwriting is consistently strong enough to keep it engaging throughout. While of course there were fans who weren't satisfied with anything less than a proper new Ween album, Freeman was a huge success critically for Aaron, and must have felt like a decisive victory in such an uncertain time. In 2015, the Dean Ween Group released its first single, a cover of the Eagles of Death Metal's I Love You All the Time, for charity project the Play It Forward campaign, which also featured artists like Florence and the Machine and Jimmy Eat World. Then, without warning, on November 16, 2015, a post appeared on Ween.com announcing that Ween was reuniting, initially just for 2 shows on the 12th and 13th of February 2016. After selling out almost immediately, the band added another date on the next day, Valentine's Day. After the success of that 3-day run, Ween continued playing gigs sporadically to consistently sold-out crowds, with 2+ hour-long setlists that saw the band feature fan favorites and debuting classic tracks that had never been played live before that point. Many interpolated that the reason for the reunion was that Gene had proven to himself that his sobriety was strong over those 4 long years, and was ready to test the waters on returning to the limelight. And good for him. I think congratulations are in order. On October 21st, 2016, the Dean Ween Group released the Diener album, and just 1 month later, Ween would release God Ween Satan Live, a recording of their New Hope God Ween Satan anniversary show on September 14th, 2001, just 3 days after 9/11 and 70 miles from New York City. With these two releases, alongside the fairly steady stream of live shows, it finally felt like things were heating back up for Ween, and that maybe that next studio album was right on the horizon. Ween played 51 shows in 2017, matching the pace that the band had set pre-breakup. In 2018, Ween surpassed themselves with 58 shows, and on March 9th, 2018, the Dean Ween Group released Rock 2, their second studio album. On June 1st, 2018, Warner Brothers released Bananas and Blow, a compilation of Ween tracks that Warner Brothers had the rights to, that was not okayed by the band. Dean took to the Ween Appreciation Society on Facebook to write, "Just FYI, though you probably already figured it out yourselves, Warner Bros. Went and released a Ween Greatest Hits, and we have none, without us knowing. If they had just picked up the phone, we could have helped make it something special. The song choices seem kind of random to me. A lot of Goblin Satan on there, which I didn't even know they owned. There's a lot I don't know though, admittedly. Anyhow, carry on." In 2020, many Ween shows scheduled for the fall were postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and were rescheduled for June of the next year. However, many of these makeup shows were also cancelled, with Ween only playing 14 shows in 2021, all of which occurred after August. In August of 2022, Ween performed at the South Park 25th Anniversary Show, along with Primus, Rush, and of course, Trey Parker and Matt Stone. In 2024, in preparation for the 30th anniversary of Chocolate and Cheese, Ween announced two exciting developments. First, the band would embark on a tour, celebrating both the 30th anniversary of Choc and Cheese and the 40th anniversary of the band itself, culminating in a show in Philly on September 27th, where Ween would play the entirety of Chocolate and Cheese from cover to cover. Next was a deluxe remaster of the album, with a second disc full of outtakes and early versions of album tracks, which was set to release on August 2nd, 2024. One of these things did not go to plan. In April, Ween cancelled their planned shows that month, with Dean taking to social media to say, "For the majority of my life, I've been blessed enough to have a career doing the thing that I love the most. This privilege has never been lost on me. The fact that the music reaches other people and means so much to them is something that I never take for granted, and for which I am truly grateful, all of the time, every time we perform. At this moment in time though, I need to step away from performing live in order to preserve my mental and spiritual well-being, and instead focus on myself and loved ones. I know this will come as a disappointment, and with great inconvenience to many people who bought tickets and made travel plans. And for this, I sincerely apologize. I look forward to returning to the stage with the enthusiasm, joy, and renewed sense of inspiration that our fans deserve, and that I require of myself when we play live. Thank you, and God bless. Diener." Gene tried to make up for the disappointment by playing a surprise solo show on 4/20 in Seattle, but the rest of the band's tour dates were pushed back to August. On August 2nd, the deluxe version of Chocolate and Cheese was released to great fanfare. Many of the band's most beloved outtakes were now available officially in high def, as were several tracks that had never been heard before, even by the most die-hard devotees. That night, Ween played the Kettle House Amphitheater in Missoula with an epic 31-song set. Then, the next night in the same venue, featuring the live debut of Makin' Love in the Gravy. The next day, the band traveled to Washington to play the sold-out Spokane Pavillion. This 32-song set featured all of the hits, like Transdermal Celebration, Bananas and Blow, Ocean Man, Buckingham Green, The Mollusk, Roses Are Free, and Birthday Boy, as well as unreleased outtakes and deep-cut fan favorites from the band's Brown era. It was the Ween show to end all Ween shows, and how I wish that was just a figure of speech. On August 6th, the day they were supposed to play a show in Seattle, Ween cancelled the rest of their tour dates, leaving only the Chocolate and Cheese show on the agenda. This time, the announcement came, not from Dean, but from Ween management, and was just about how to get a refund. Something was definitely wrong. That day, Gene tweeted, "Hey guys, I've been getting tons of messages. Know that I'm perfectly fine and just as disappointed. Love, Gene." On August 29th, Ween once again posted a statement, reading, "It is with sincere regret and heavy hearts that Ween must make the decision to step away from the stage for the foreseeable future. This includes next month's sold-out Chocolate and Cheese 25th anniversary show at the Mann Music Center in Philadelphia. Despite 3 great shows this summer, it's becoming clear that touring and performing is too taxing on Diener's mental health to continue. As always, we thank you for the love, dedication, and ongoing support." Many fans were obviously disappointed with the way the cancellations were handled, but most seasoned Ween fans understood that Dean was more important than any show, and didn't want to see another Vancouver incident take place. So we waited and bid our time. While talking with Jay Interviews on YouTube, Klob was asked about the status of Ween. Not as an impatient fan, but as a concerned friend, genuinely interested in how things were going. Pretty bluntly, Klob stated, "There's basically nothing new to report along those lines from anyone. I think everyone is still kind of in a holding pattern, and everyone is hoping for the best for everybody involved, including the sort of primary person, which is the attention focus of everything. You know, Big Diener. I think everybody probably has a notion that it'll come back around at some point, just because it kind of has to, because that's the nature of music and creating. I don't know anybody who retires from music. It's just not possible physically, emotionally, spiritually. I don't think there's any chance of it ever going away with any kind of real permanence." Sounds familiar. But with no news since, we'll just have to wait and see. After 40 years of history, Ween seemed to be in an existential jeopardy. Whether they would ever return to stage or studio again was completely unpredictable. So until that fateful day, if it ever comes, when the lights go up and the crowd erupts, as Claude sits behind the kit, Dave picks up his bass, Glenn takes to the keys, and Gene and Dean Ween step into the spotlight, all we can do is hold on to the memories, playing the albums, watching videos from tour, and reminiscing on the history of Ween.
What's the proverb, asshole? What are you saying? What? Drums?